You support black students having their own separate graduation?
I'm sure that's what they wanted.
So you'd be okay with that?
Yes.
Separate graduation?
Yeah, I definitely would. Absolutely. Absolutely, they should have it.
What about kind of black safe spaces?
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
To have like your own space where the black people kind of separate from the white people?
Why? Why? Are you going back in time? Why are you separating? We're all together.
Well, I don't understand the logic there. I feel like that's basically segregation. We should all graduate together.
I feel that that's segregation and that shouldn't be happening.
It's obviously terrible to separate people by race.
Discrimination might not be the ultimate goal, but people take it that way.
Separating people by race at the gym, I don't even understand that. Like what?
Separate but equal doctrine came to be. That as long as you have equal facilities, and they were anything but equal in the South, as long as you had equal facilities, it was okay to separate the races. It basically, what it allowed the southern states to do is some things they were already doing with their Jim Crow law. They make African Americans to be second-class citizens.
Jim Crow separated folks on streetcars, they separated folks in bathrooms. Black folks would not be allowed to use a spigot where water was flowing just to get a drink, even if it was used by white folks in any way. They just simply wanted to separate black people from all of white folks and then assure that in Jim Crow laws that they were unable to influence society so that they could change anything.
It's going to be separate, it all has to be equal.
Yeah.
It can be separate, but it's got to be equal, obviously.
Of course, as long as it's equal.
If it's going to be separate, it has to be equal, though, obviously, in terms of what the housing is, the graduation.
Right. That would make the most sense.
These students are not the only people on board with this type of racial segregation.
Hey, I'm Chris Barker. I'm Imperial Wizard for the Loyal White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
Chris was arrested for stabbing another Klan leader over an argument about who was the most racist. There's this thing going on university campuses where they're trying to separate black people from white people in gyms, in graduations, in housing. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a good thing, and I think it's in people's nature. I mean, it's in everybody's nature to be with their own kind. People are tribal, and we want to be amongst our own selves. And I mean, we're still a segregated nation regardless, and it's always going to be that way.
Are you glad that the left has kind of come around to your point of view?
It would be a good thing if the left continues that way. Pretty glad that they're doing it too. If they can stay more segregated, maybe the whites can learn their own culture.
I'm kind of happy about it, truthfully. I'm smiling, you know?
I wonder if there's any other interesting things that you agree with college leftists. Like, do you have a safe space? Do you guys emo? Do you listen to Cardi B?
I don't listen to Cardi B. I don't do emo.
I think one of the great handicaps that blacks and other minorities face across the country is that they are systematically mismatched with universities in the admissions process. That is, if Harvard feels that it must have X% of blacks, and if the pool is such that they can't get X% of blacks at the same level as the rest of the Harvard students, they're going to take those blacks who would have succeeded in some state university and bring them to Harvard, where many of them will fail. Or MIT is a better example, that the average black student at MIT is in the bottom 10% of MIT students in math. But he is in the top 90% of all American students in math, because MIT students are so phenomenal in mathematics. Something like 1/4 of all the black students going to MIT do not graduate. You're talking about a pool of people who score at the 90th percentile in math, whom you are artificially turning into failures by mismatching them with the school.
That ban on demonstrations was lifted effective this morning, but Father Grappi and the Youth Council were not willing to wait. After 3 hours of speeches, they marched last night, and they were halted by police within a half block of the Catholic church grounds where they had assembled. Father Grappi was arrested the second night in a row with 14 others. Police, the targets of rocks and bottles from some of the marchers, charged the crowd, driving them off the street and back onto the church grounds. More bricks and debris came flying from both sides of the street. 19 persons were injured, 15 of them policemen. Angry police finally charged onto the church grounds, clubs swinging, and began firing tear gas into the crowd gathered near the church and school. In the wake of the violence, more than 20 fires were set in nearby Negro neighborhoods, 4 of them blamed on fire bombs. Still another march is in progress at this hour. Comedian Dick Gregory and possibly other national civil rights figures expected to attend. Father Grappi and the Youth Council say that they intend to keep it up. They call it pressure. Some others are calling it blackmail. Bill Plant, CBS News, Milwaukee. The Black Caucus, which had stayed outside the convention, finally put 13 demands as their price for taking part. Among other points, they demanded the convention condemn Israel for what they called the imperialist Zionist war of last June, and they insisted that white civilizing committees be set up in white communities to humanize the beast-like white men symbolized by George Lincoln Rockwell and Lyndon Baines Johnson. Then came the debate. The argument in favor was for unity.
All of us have been involved in this. Why can't we act with each other as fellow human beings and be able to come out with a political organization with economic demands that can be a threat to the two major parties? I speak for this resolution.
I have talked to lots of people who say they will vote in favor of this resolution. Why? Because they agree with it? No. Because if we do not, the black people will walk out, and we don't want that. Let's humor the Black Caucus. Let's say whatever the Black Caucus wants us to say. This is hypocrisy and patronization of the worst sort to both the Black Caucus and to the black people of this country, and I oppose it.
Well, I'm specifically against the resolution dealing with the anti-imperialist Zionist war. I feel that we have to state our opposition to imperialism per se, imperialistic wars. I think the very fact that it says this is not anti-Semitic indicates some psychological guilt feeling.
What about what happened here today, Mr. Weiss?
Well, I think it demonstrated that black people as well as white people, singly or together, can make damn fools of themselves. I think what happened here was a travesty and a tragedy. It wasn't a demonstration of black power, it was a demonstration of blackmail.
White radicals are running this convention, but they understood that they needed the blacks if they were to have a true coalition. So they made concessions to the Black People's Caucus that many of them privately deplore. There are not a few here who believe that in those concessions could lie the future doom of the New Politics Coalition.
Open housing demonstrators marched in Milwaukee today for the 7th day in a row. Led by Father James Gruppy, the 700 demonstrators marched through downtown Milwaukee and the city's north side.
Hundreds gathered again today at Father Gruppy's parish church after covering nearly 20 miles in marches yesterday and into the early morning hours. It was peaceful last night until very near the end when police marching with the demonstrators were hit with a few rocks and firecrackers. Comedian Dick Gregory, who says he's here for the duration of the open housing movement, had some words of caution for the militants.
About these brick throwers. We going out here marching against a no good white cracker system. And still getting up with some nigga in the line that's gonna throw a brick or a bottle at one of these crackers, then you worse than he is. If you don't have to come so insane that you gonna throw a bottle at a cop with a gun and leave your lines open for 40 other cops to rush in, then maybe you might as well put on the policeman's uniform.
Gregory advised that the best thing to do with brick throwers is to turn them in to police. Supporters of the movement are arriving from other cities and the tedious marching continues. Tomorrow, the first day of school, Father Gruppy has urged parents to keep their children home. They will learn more, he says, by marching. Bill Plant, CBS News, Milwaukee.
The southern states got around to the constitutional laws by passing the Jim Crow laws. These laws and customs stated that it was constitutional to give blacks separate but equal treatment.
It's going to be separate, it all has to be equal.
Yeah.
The problem was the equal part was seldom identical to the whites' privileges and advantages. Blacks were not allowed to eat in all the same restaurants as whites. Blacks had to use separate bathrooms, drinking fountains, beaches, and park benches.